Hello friends, welcome to CGA. So previously we have seen all the basics of SQL, and in this video we are going to see about the stored procedures. We are going to use whatever we have learned previously inside a stored procedure to write some business logic. So what is stored procedure? We can write any business logic inside the stored procedure. So and we can call it whenever it is required. That is, it is very simple, but we can write any logic, in the sense we can write any kind of query, or the SP writing itself is an art actually, because achieving a business requirement or some story, converting it into a program is actually an art. So if you learn this by watching this video and also by practicing yourself, and I will try to put as much example as possible here in order to demonstrate the stored procedure, not only in this session, and also it will continue. So please do watch this and then learn how to write the stored procedure in a very good way. Okay, right. So what is stored procedure? Stored procedure contains a set of SQL statement or from which we are going to achieve some business logic. Okay, so let me create the stored procedure, and first let's see what is the syntax of creating the stored procedure. Create stored procedure or create procedure name. Now we can give any name that we wish. Okay, but it is advisable to give some common notation or common letters in the starting. For example, sp underscore. We are going to learn the stored procedure by writing some logic based on the bank transactions that is happening in our day-to-day life. So I am going to name this stored procedure as bank transactions. And we can give any number of input variable to the stored procedure. We can also give no parameter as input. We can just simply write some logic inside the stored procedure also. In here I am going to give two input parameter for the stored procedure. First one is employee ID, and then we need to mention the data type of the particular input variable, and also we are going to provide the amount that he is going to transact. Okay, amount is numeric of 18,2, because the amount can be in decimal also. Okay, so we have mentioned the input variables, then we need to give the keyword as, and then begin and end. We can give, this is the syntax for writing the stored procedure. We can write any business logic in between this begin and end. For example, we have already created two tables called employee and department while we are learning the basics of SQL. Okay, all this stored procedure and the function, cursor, trigger, view that we are going to learn from now comes under the transact SQL. So whatever we have learned in our SQL classes, we are going to use, or we are going to write inside this stored procedure. For example, here we can give while learning the basics of SQL, we have created two tables, right? Select star from employee. We have created two tables actually. So these are all the two tables that we have created. Okay, so this can also be a statement that we can write inside the stored procedure. If I compile this, if I execute this stored procedure, we will get error, because we need to provide two input variable. Okay, so let me execute this. The syntax for executing the stored procedure is exec procedure name and the input variables. Okay, first employee id. So at employee id equal to 1, and next is amount equal to say some 10. Okay, so now this is the syntax for executing a stored procedure. If I execute this, see, I have already created the stored procedure, command executed successfully. If we see here, this stored procedure would have got created. Okay, so here see, our stored procedure has got created, sp_bank transaction, which will contain this text only, which is currently displayed in the screen. Okay, so if I run this stored procedure, the stored procedure will get 2 input parameters with 1 for employee id and 10 for the amount, and then it will display, it will execute the statement that we have written inside the begin and end, and it will give us the output. So whatever input if we pass, it is just directly going to run these two statements. Okay, so if we run this execute statement now, this is the way to execute the stored procedure. If I run this, we will get the output of select star from employee and the select star from department. See, so I have executed it, so we have got these two as the output. But here if I put where employee id equal to at employee id, at employee id is nothing but the employee id that we are going to give to this stored procedure as the input. So we have given 1 here. So if we run this stored procedure now, actually we need to, since we have created the stored procedure, we need to alter this and then compile. I have made it as alter, and then now I am compiling the SP, so it is done. Now if we see this, the employee, select star from employee, where employee id equal to this at employee id, which is 1, that we will get as the output in the first select, and select star from department will get executed. See, previously we got all the records from employee. Now the input 1 has been passed to the stored procedure, so this variable contains the value 1. So we are getting the output for the employee 1 alone here in the result set. Okay, so for example, if you want to display what is the value getting passed over here, if you display the variable employee id here, then now I have altered the stored procedure. Now if I run this, we can see what is the input that is getting passed. See, this is the select employee id, this is the output of the next statement which we have written here, this is the output of the. So each time we don't need to write all the thing that we are going to write inside the stored procedure. Just this one statement will call all the statements that has been written inside the stored procedure. Okay, let's write some meaningful logic, and then we can demonstrate how we can write some business logic in a stored procedure. Okay, so for that, what I am going to do is, first here if we see this employee table, we have these many columns, right? So employee, department, salary, all that we have. Okay, now what I am going to add another one column where this employee's bank balance is going to displayed here. Okay, so I am going to alter this table, alter table employee, add, what column we are going to add? Bank balance, or okay, bank balance. Okay, we should not give space. If we give space for a column, then we need to mention it inside a bracket like this. Okay, Now we have not given any space for this, so we don't need to give this bracket, and then bank balance will be numeric again, numeric of 18,2. So now I have added this column. Okay, so I am going to update bank balance for each employee. If we see this, we can see the bank balance column has been added to the employee table. Now I am going to update the bank balance. Okay, update employee that also why we need to write that. We can modify the store procedure itself such that it updates the details of employee. Okay, so update employee set bank balance equal to at amount. Okay, where employee ID equal to at employee ID. So this is the only statement that we have written inside the stored procedure. Okay, so now if I run this, it should update the bank balance of the employee ID, which I am passing it as input, with the amount that I am passing it as the input again. Okay, so now let's see what are all the employees we have already in the employee table. Okay, let me put it in a new query, or okay, let me put it here. Select star from employee. Okay, so 1 2 3 4 5 and 6 employee ID we don't have. 7 8 9 10 11. Okay, so 5 and 6 alone we do not have. Okay, so now what I am going to do, I am going to, for employee ID 1, I am going to update the bank balance with this variable amount. So for employee ID 1, let the bank balance be 10,000. If I execute this, I am not sure whether I have executed this SP. Let me compile this first. Now if we execute this, hopefully this employee table would have got updated with the balance as 10,000 for the employee ID 1. Okay, select star from employee. See, for employee ID 1 it has updated the bank balance as 10,000. Okay, so now what we can do, let me put the select star from employee here. Why we need to check each time? We can, let me compile this. So each time it will update the amount for the particular employee ID as the bank balance, and then it will display all the records from the employee. Now for the employee ID 2, I am going to make it as 20,000. Now if I compile this, if I execute this, so far it has been updated. For employee ID 2, 20,000 got updated, and we are getting all the records from the employee. That is what we have written inside the stored procedure, so that is getting executed. Okay, for next, for employee ID 3, 30,000. Employee ID 4, 40,000. Employee ID 5, we don't have any employee ID 5 here. Okay, so next is employee ID 7, again 40,000. See, now we have written two statements. This is the logic, or some logic that we have written inside the stored procedure. So I have compiled the stored procedure. If I execute this, we can see these statements are getting executed. So this is a very basic example for demonstrating a stored procedure, but we are going to make this stored procedure a big one. We are going to write some more many logics inside this stored procedure, so that you can be aware of what are all the things that we can do inside the stored procedure, and also as like an experienced person you can say you have worked in the stored procedure. Okay, for employee id 7 we have updated. Okay, 8, 9, 10, 11, 4 more, we can update it soon. Actually we can write a logic inside this stored procedure to update all the employees bank balance or whatever it is we can do. But at this level, since I have written only this statement for you to demonstrate the stored procedure, I am running this stored procedure again and again. Okay. How many more are there? 3 more. Okay. 9 is getting, say, some 15,000. Now employee ID 10 is getting 25,000. You can see as we are running the stored procedure, the output are getting based on the input that we are giving to the stored procedure. Okay, and also if you want here, if I want to display only the employee ID that has been passed as an output, that also we can do. Employee ID equal to at employee ID. If I put here, if I am going to give employee ID 11 and I am going to make his salary as 25,000, I'm not sure whether I have altered this stored procedure. Let me alter, and then if I execute this, it will display only the employee ID that has been passed as the input. That has been passed, that we have passed 11 as the employee ID as an input to the stored procedure. It has updated the amount 25,000 as bank balance to the employee table for the employee ID 11, and it is displaying the records from the employee for those particular employee ID that we have passed as output. So what this SP has done now, it has updated the bank balance of employee ID 11 as 25,000, and then it displayed the particular record as the output. This is what we have done. Now if I put select star from employee, we can see we have updated all the bank balance of the employees. Okay, now what I am going to do, I am going to create one table called transaction details. Create table tbl underscore. This is a best practice to prefix tbl underscore as the prefix for all the tables that we create. Previously we have not created in such a way, but it is a good habit to make tbl underscore or some unique kind of prefix as per your company suggests as the prefix for a particular table. Okay, tbl underscore transaction details. Column name emp id. Actually it should be customer id, since we have created employee table previously with and we have demonstrated many things. I am using the same table for demonstrating the stored procedure also. Else we can create some customer table. When it comes to bank, it is customer, right? So it is just for demonstration, don't worry about that. So employee id, and then employee id, the data type is integer, and then transaction type transaction type is varchar of 1. I will tell you what this transaction type is. I am adding all these column and table just for demonstrating you more examples in the stored procedure. Okay, transaction type, and then amount, the amount he has transacted, numeric of 18,2, and the transaction date. Okay, so this table I am going to create now. Okay, so transaction table, transaction details we have created. Okay, so if we put alt F1 for this, we have created a table got transaction details, employee ID, transaction type, amount, transaction date. Actually, whatever table we create, there should be one primary key for this table as mandatory. So what I am going to do, since I have not created any primary key for this particular table, I am going to drop this table and add a primary key. Okay, oh sorry, so here let's have some transaction ID. Int primary key identity of all these, each and every letter I am typing here I have taken class for you before, so you can easily understand that. If you have not understanding what is this identity, primary key, etc., you can go and watch the basic videos. First we need to drop this table because we have already created it without primary key. So I am going to drop this table. If I execute this, we have got this transaction details table created. We have got this transaction table created with this transaction ID as the primary key. Okay, okay, now what are we going to do with this transaction detail table is nothing but here we are going to write some logic meaningfully. Okay, so we have select star from employee. We have this many employees in our table, and their bank balance is also we have updated. We have seen an example for this updating bank balance example as a simple example for demonstrating the basic stored procedure. Okay, now what I am going to do, I am going to here each employee is going to transact something, he is going to buy something, his account will get debited, credited, he may transfer some amount from his account to some other account. Whatever he does, we are going to track it in the transaction detail table which we have created now, and then we are going to update the bank balance accordingly. That's what we are going to do. For example, here I am going to add another input variable called transaction type. Varchar of 1. I am going to write a comment over here employee ID, that we are going to provide the employee ID for which we are going to process the stored procedure. Transaction type is nothing but it can be credit, debit and transfer. So we need to give C as C for credit. We need to give C for credit as input. If we give C as an input to the stored procedure in the transaction type variable, it means for this employee ID some credit transaction is happening, and D for debit. Okay, and also we are going to put T for transfer. Okay, then now with this, for example, if the transaction type equal to first whatever it is, whatever the transaction the user does, I am going to insert it into the transaction detail table. Insert into this transaction details table. Transaction ID is the primary key, so we are going to insert values in these four columns. Okay, employee ID, transaction type, amount and the transaction date. Select at employee ID whichever employee we are getting as the who is doing the transaction, which we are getting as the input to the stored procedure, we are going to insert in this table. And then transaction type, that also we are getting as input. Amount, that also we are getting as input. And the transaction date is nothing but get date. Now the transaction is happening. Okay, so this will insert whenever this SP is called or executed based on the input. So this SP will get executed only when some transaction happens. So this, based on this input, those transaction details are inserted into this particular transaction details table. So now what we are going to do, after inserting the data into the transaction detail table, based on the transaction that he has performed, we are going to update the bank balance column that is available in the employee table. For example, if the transaction type equal to D means debit, we are going to update employee table set bank balance equal to bank balance minus the amount that he is transacting. Since it is a debit transaction, we need to subtract the bank balance with the amount that he is going to transact. Again, if the transaction is credit, we are going to add those amount to the bank balance. If the transaction is transfer, or we can put like else if. And if the transaction is transfer, which means this is not debit or credit. Actually, if this condition is passed, execute this statement. Else, if this condition is true, then execute this statement. If both the conditions are false, execute whichever is available in the else statement. We have only three options, D, C and T. So if t is getting passed over here, we are going to transfer. In case of transfer, we need to subtract the bank balance from the person who is transferring, and we need to add the balance to the person who is getting the amount. So here both debit and credit occurs. So in case if the user is transferring the amount, then in that case we need from employee and to employee. From employee and to employee. That also we are going to get from the user, because we don't know who is transferring the amount and who is getting the amount. So this also we are going to get it as the input from the user who is transacting. Okay, so here I will tell you again. So now here we are going to put to update. If the transaction is transfer, which is not debit and credit, if it is transfer, both debit and the credit should happen, right? So this is, we are subtracting the amount here, so we need to subtract from the person, where employee ID equal to from employee. So he is the person who is transferring. Okay, to employee will receive the amount, so we are going to add the amount here. So we are going to add the amount here. So these two will happen for the if we give the t or some other value as the input for transaction type other than DNC. It is advisable here, we will advise the user to give t as the input. Okay, so this is the logic that we have written now. Just 1 minute. So this is the logic we have written for the stored procedure. So whatever the whenever this stored procedure is getting called, this will put an entry in the transaction detail with the transaction that is happening, and based on the transaction type that we are getting as the input, we will perform this particular logic. If it is D, we will debit from the amount. If it is C, we will credit to the account. If it is T, we will debit from the person who is transferring. If it and we are going to credit the amount, it is plus amount, right? So we are going to credit the amount to the employee that is being given as the input. So let's see how this works. Okay, first let's alter this stored procedure. Now here we have added few more input parameter. These many input parameter need to be passed, it must be passed. Okay, so here if I put at next, the second input is transaction type. Okay, transaction type equal to something we are going to give now. Okay, so from employee and the to employee. But while doing credit and debit, this from employee and to employee is not needed. But if I run this, if I run this stored procedure, execute this, it will throw us the error saying, sorry, here comma is missing. It will throw us the error saying the SP is expecting the input variable for from employee and to employee, because we have given only the 3 input, but the SP expects 5 parameters as the input variable. Okay, so now here See, as I said, it is saying from employee needs to be given, but now in this example we are going to debit, we are going to do the debit transaction. For debit transaction, from employee and to employee variable is not at all required. So in that case, if we do not mandate any input variable, if we give null as the default value, then it won't expect our execute statement to provide input to all the variables. Now it will expect only for these three variables. Okay, so now I have given these three input. Now let's see what is the bank balance. So here now what I am going to do is select star from employee where employee ID equal to at employee. After doing all those business logic, I am going to display those particular record in the at the last of the SP in order to see whether the stored procedure has got executed correctly as per our expectations. TBL. Okay, so this we are going to provide at the last. So this is the some business logic that we have written inside the stored procedure. So now we are going to execute. Let's see what is the thing we have currently in the employee table. In the employee table, for the employee ID 1, we have 10,000 as the bank balance. For example, he is going to employee ID 1 is going to debit or some withdraw some from amount from the ATM or somewhere. So if I put 1500, he is going to debit. Okay, if I run the stored procedure, what should happen is we have 10,000 as the bank balance for the employee ID 1. So if he debits 1500 rupees, we should subtract and he should have 8500 as the bank balance, and we need to track this transaction in the table transaction details table. Let's see the table transaction details is saying employee ID 1 has debited 1500 at this date and time. So his current balance has been updated as 8500. For example, now let's see what is the bank balance of the employee 2, and then let's put some transactions. Oh, we have written some wrong thing, because in the update it has updated for all the employees. Okay, so it should not be. So what we need to do, we need to update it only for the employee that we are getting as the input. The where condition is missing here, so it has updated for all the tables. So now let's check now. Okay, now let's check. Now I have altered this. So now if I see the employee one's bank balance is 8500. Now what I am going to do, I am going to credit 1500 to the employee ID 1. If you see here, this is the second transaction happened. Previously it was 8500. 1500 has been credited to employee ID 1, hence his bank balance is 10,000. Now let's see what is the bank balance of employee ID 2. 20,000. Is it happening correctly? I hope it is happening correctly. Okay. So now let's check the bank balance for the employee ID 2 is 20,000. Now what I am going to do, for employee ID 2 I am going to debit 500 rupees, and rest all the records should have the same value, 10, 30, 40, 60 and all, everything should be same. We should update only the employee ID 2 because we are going to run this stored procedure only for the employee ID 2. Okay, so let's see whether we have given correctly the employee ID in all the, yeah, we have given the employee ID in all the where condition and the update statements. Okay, now sorry, oh, is it, we have not compiled it previously, emp ID. Okay, now I am going to compile, so it should correctly update the, let's delete everything from the transaction details and then let's start from the first. Delete from transaction details. Okay, nothing will be there currently in the transaction detail table, so this is the record that we have in the employee table. Okay, now I am going to manipulate. For employee ID 1 I am going to debit 500 rupees, so it should be 9,500 and that entries need to be tracked. Okay, 500 rupees debited for employee ID 1 at this date and time. Okay, so the bank balance has become 9,500. It should not affect any other employees data. The rest of the other data is as like the previous one. It didn't update any other record now. So now our statements are working correctly. And for employee ID 2 the bank balance is 20,000, right? Employee ID 2, the bank balance is, I am going to credit 500 rupees to the, or some 2,500 rupees to the employee ID C, employee ID 2. Okay, since it is a transaction type equal to C, it should credit. See, 2,500 rupees added to the bank balance, and this for the employee ID 2 credit transaction happened, amount is 2,500 and transaction date is this, our current date and time. Okay, now let's check whether our transfer logic works fine. Transfer T. Now employee ID 3 is going to transfer some amount, say some 250 rupees. What now, let's see, for the employee ID 3 the bank balance is 30,000. Employee ID 4 the bank balance is 40,000. Now 3 is going to transfer 500 rupees to 4. So when it comes to transaction type T, our SP will expect two parameters, which is from emp. From employee is 3. To whom the employee is transferring? The to employee is 4. So this 30,000 should change as 29,500 and this 40,000 should change as 40,500. That is the thing that should happen, and those entries should be tracked in the transaction detail table. Let's see if it happens like that or not. Sorry, I have mentioned at from him. It should be at from him. So here transfer has happened 250 rupees by the employee ID 3. Okay, so for the employee ID 3 250 rupees has been subtracted. If we see here, here for employee ID 4 250 rupees has been added, for employee ID 3 250 rupees has been reduced. So similarly we can write any logic inside the stored procedure. This is how we need to write the business logics inside the stored procedure, and we can also write many things like cursor, function, view, everything we can use for some purposes of achieving the business logic. So we will discuss everything, all that cursors, function, view and all in the next session. Thank you.